Hello and welcome to today's video. This time we'll be taking an updated 2024 look at my collection of John Norman's Gore books. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Okay then, so today we're going to be looking through my British, French and American Gore books by John Norman, and I've also brought down some related bits and pieces, some DAW catalogues. I've got some proof covers and things like that on the Gore series, which you might find interesting as well. So we'll start off with the British ones, and we'll do these in a book series order. I've actually got a couple of copies of this, and this is like my more tattier reading copy. And as we go through, we'll see if we can pinpoint some of the artists. I know for a fact on these early British ones, which were published by Tandem, and we'll have a look when this first came out, the cover artists themselves aren't sadly credited. We're looking at 1970 in paperback. Sidgwick and Jackson did it in hardback in the UK in 1969. So we'll just work our way through the series. We're Outlaw of Gore, and I suspect that these were like Tandem, like house artists. They were, sort of jobbing artists who did multiple covers for Tandem, because they were quite a big publisher back in the day. Now, John Norman's actual name is John Frederick Lang Jr., and he was born in 1931. As far as I can see, he is still around. So he's in his 90s now, but certainly long-lived. And most people would describe the Gore novels, or at least they're supposed to be, science fantasy. They're not science fiction. They're not fantasy. They're supposed to be science fantasy. Norman himself was a philosophy professor. Now, in their massive peak of popularity, which was in the 70s and early 80s, these books sold worldwide. It's an estimate, but it's between 6 and 12 million copies, which is absolutely incredible when you think about it. I personally remember seeing these editions, and they're not these very, very late ones, more towards the late 70s, early 80s. There used to be a shop in my hometown of Plymouth called Bonus Books, and I would go in once a month and buy my Doctor Who book, and these would often catch the eye. At that time, there was the Conan movies were in the cinema, the Schwarzenegger ones, and the Conan books had been rejected, and they were very, very popular, and they were housed next to them. But a lot of people liken them to being sort of in the flavour of like Edgar Rice Burroughs, sort of that sort of feel of it. So I don't know. I mean, the general consensus with these books, because they do get studied quite a bit and talked about quite a bit, is that generally speaking, up those five there, the first five are perhaps as good as it gets, and after that it does start to get a bit formulaic, a bit, well, over the top with the sexuality in it, the slave girls as it were. But the first five, particularly Priest Kings, which is probably the highlight of the first five, are actually pretty decent science fiction books. But after that, you're going to be struggling a little bit, because unless you're sort of into that sort of thing yourself, or you just don't mind, really picking out the plot underneath sort of the overtones of what's going on in every single book, you may not really enjoy it. But the first five or so I do recommend, and just see how you get on. Here's that Captive of Gore, and that's actually got a signature on it there, a G. Wood. G. Wood is the signature on that one. I found the British ones to be much harder to find in top shape than the American ones, but I have to say I haven't actually been looking to upgrade my copies. I've just been trying to get one of each, really, and I have now managed to complete the British and American sets, and I've got the French ones up to a point, basically. There's Hunters of Gore. The same artist again, G. Wood. It gives the series a little bit of continuity, doesn't it? Now, they actually went on in their heyday to be published up to book 25, if you can believe it, which is Magicians of Gore in 1988. And then even DAW, which was his American publisher, even they had sort of had enough at that point. And it was a long, long time before they got revived, back in 2001, so a big gap. But eventually they did come back 13 years later, and amazingly there was a brand new Gore book published this year in 2024, which is Gore book number 38, which was Treasure of Gore. So there you go, absolutely amazing when you think about it. So as I said, Norman himself is getting on a bit, so there you go. But this is sort of typical of the British editions now. They've sort of morphed into this new style of jacket. That one's got a little A in the circle, which is actually the signature of artist Christos Achillos. He's a Greek artist, most well known as Chris Achillos for his Doctor Who covers, the earlier Doctor Who covers of the 70s. He was sort of in his heyday at this point in his career, but as well as his Doctor Who stuff, he did loads of fantasy stuff. And I do actually have a couple of like fantasy art books of the work of Chris Achillos. Here's a Beast of Gore. He didn't do them all, but he certainly did some of them. And as it says, we're looking at these in order, in publication order. And there we are. They're listed on the back so that you are encouraged to read them all in order. And look, they're numbered as well. So they realise they're onto a good thing. Perhaps one of the more risque ones, and that sort of sums up the books themselves. It's a guy with chained up women. I mean, that is basically what you're looking at, and that features in all these novels. But I mean, they are what they are. They were absolutely everywhere in the 70s and 80s, and even if you just collect them for the great cover art, I think they're a bit of fun. But as I said, to actually read them as books themselves, it's the first 5 and selected books after that, really. I've got no idea what the more modern ones are like at all. Opinion does seem to vary. Some say they are still a bit formulaic. But there you go. Here's Savages of Gore. And now Blood Brothers. As the series goes on, they get bigger and bigger and thicker and longer books, you know. Maserio, I think, is that signature there for Blood Brothers of Gore. 18 volumes of the Gorian saga. Now, this was always, for some reason, a tougher one to get hold of. Kajiro of Gore, I think is how you pronounce it. Don't know why this one's say is scarce, even in reprint form, and which is a bit weird. So if you come across this one, I think this is perhaps worth picking up in the British and American editions. This particular one, Players of Gore. I mean, that's very, very Conan, isn't it? I mean, it really, you can sort of see Conan holding that sword. Masterio, that's it, Masterio, same cover artist. Here's Mercenaries. And Dancer of Gore, that's a nice jacket. Can't quite make out the signature there, but very, very nice bit of artwork, that one. Renegades. 23rd. And then the last one of the Gore series to be published in the UK was this one, Vagabonds of Gore. In the UK here, we didn't get the last book, Magicians, for some reason. I don't know why it was. I mean, maybe they just weren't selling. It's really, really difficult to know. But we never had that final book. But we did get 2 of the John Norman spin-offs. So this was Time Slave. Obviously, you know, to tie in with the Gore, they use the same sort of logo and things like that. And that pretty nice packaging on that one as well for Time Slave. And they did this one, which is about American Indians, I believe, a ghost dance. The Sioux Warriors, Sioux Indians. The Massacre at Wounded Knee, a novel of the last great days of the Sioux. So that was Ghost Dance. So that is my collection of British Gore books, such as it stands, and that was pretty much all of it. I don't know if his other little spin-off, Imaginative Sex, ever got a British publication. I don't think I've ever seen it. It just does exist in the DAW books. So let's have a look at those next. So here's another sort of Gore-related item. This is like a fanzine, really. Total Fantasy. I cannot remember where I got this one, or even when it was published, but we'll have a look. But it's got a feature on, as well as loads of comic stuff, which is really interesting. It's got a feature on the Gore books. Paul Ware was the publisher of this one, and I think the Gore book is, the Gore article rather, is page 68. The summary's quite good. It says, much reviled for his anti-feminist writing, Norman started out in the Edgar Rice Burroughs tradition of sorcery-free sword and sorcery fiction, and the first 5 volumes of his Gore series rank as some of the finest examples of the subgenre that you will find anywhere. Yeah, so there you go. So they're also saying that it's basically the earlier books, which are the ones, here we are, the ones to sort of, if you're going to actually want to read some, they're the ones to sort of dip your toe into to give them a try. So I think he does review the earlier books here, so you get a feel for them. And then there's like a bit of a beginner's guide to Gore, and he does his own sort of, not a bibliography, but basically a key to what all the things are, because you do have to pick it up as you go along. Anyway, I've got no idea how difficult that would be to actually find online, but might take a bit of digging. But Total Fantasy, a Past Perfect Special is that one's called. I've got these as well. Now these are proof covers. Now these are not proofs of the first editions. They're just the editions that were around when these proofs were published. Some of them have got information on the back. That's a plain back. But what would happen? You notice that these are perforated on the side. And that's because reps would come round, bookshop reps, and they would have a folder of that month's releases, and they were ring bound, and the reps would often, if you asked them at the end of the month, they would save the ring bind. So I used to save all the Doctor Who ones, and I got them to save me these as well. So these were just the printings that were around at that time, not necessarily the first printings. But they're quite nice. As I said, they are proof jackets, so often they're different to the first editions. Sometimes they got improved. These are the ones I sort of remember in the 80s. And big lines of these in the bookshops. But they're really nice. As I said, there can't be many of these that have really survived as proof jackets. See, that's an example of one with some publisher's information on the back. Published 17th of July 81. Science fantasy. Sales points. Savage, sexy science fantasy. There you go. Savage and sexy. So Time Slave, and that's the alternative cover to Ghost Dance. There we are. So I thought you'd like to see those. Something a bit different. Now we'll go on to my run of French Gore books. Now I've only got 9, I think, and these are pretty much in order again. So that's Tarnsman of Gore. It looks like these are wraparound jackets. Oh no, that's just a mirror image actually. And when were these published? It'd be interesting to know. I think they're possibly late 70s, early 80s. Not always, 82, yeah. Not always easy to tell. Nouvelles edition Opta. Original title, Tarnsman of Gore, yeah. So these are in order. And these are also numbered in the Opta series, they're numbered on the spine there. It says A5, number 89. So I know we've got them in order. I used to have a run of French Gore hardbacks, which were incredibly lavish. They all came out as limited editions, but I didn't have them all. I had maybe 3 or 4 of them, and they were fetching such insane money. I just sold them in the end. They were too expensive to hold on to for something that I was never going to read, but they were beautiful editions. It's Assassins of Gore. Les Pirates de Gore. So what was that one then? That would have been Raiders of Gore. Oh yeah. And then the last one we got is this one, which I guess is it Slave Girl? Captive of Gore. There we are. So that is the 9 French editions. And now we'll move on to the American ones. Now the original run of the American books weren't published by DAW, they were published by Ballantine. You recognise the familiar little BB in the top left corner. This is the first one. This is the very first sort of edition I ever read. It was easier to get hold of at one point than the British one, which took me ages to get a copy of. Things have obviously changed nowadays, but I wouldn't mind getting a better copy of that one. Here's number 2, of course. And Ballantine, I think, well, I'll have a look here, I think did the first sort of 7 or so. That's 4, that's number 5. Changing cover design there. That's 5, that's 6. And that is book 7. And book 7 was the last one to be published by Ballantine. And then they moved into the familiar DAW with their yellow spines. So we'll look at those next. Now, I've got a couple of DAW catalogues. This is the DAW catalogue for 1981. It was their 10th anniversary because they started in 71 at that time. And I've got the one for 1982 as well. The content from a GOR point of view is very, very similar. But the 81 one does have this rather nice spread here, which has got the book jackets there. I think what's of particular interest is this, which is DAW boxed sets. Look, John Norman GOR Series 1 and 2. And once again, I used to have a British and an American box set and for GOR, and I got rid of them. I thought, well, I just want the books mainly. I'm not too fussed about the box sets. The other thing in this catalogue, which is absolutely awesome, if I can find, oh, it's right on the back, it's that DAW spinner. Look at that. So it's a spinner just full of DAW. I'd like one of those spinners very much. But as I said, there's not a lot of difference between the 81 and the 82. It's more of the same, basically. But they DAW catalogues don't turn up very often. They are pretty scarce. And there we are. That's the John Norman splash there. And usually, well, they just don't turn up. It's usually the much more modern ones. So I'm really, really pleased to have those. Anyway, let's go through the DAW run now of John Norman. So we've got book 8 there, which is Hunters, and book 9. So when I last filmed the GOR books, it was 5 years ago, and the channel was very, very new at the time, and I was missing a couple of the American ones. I think I was missing 3 of them, and I've since managed to track those down. There's book 10 and book 11. I think the artist who did a lot of these, I think he did loads of DAW books. Gino Di Diachili. I really don't know how you pronounce it. But book 12. There's book 13. Then over there. Lovely with their distinctive yellow spines, at least until the later books. Book 14. Rogue of GOR is book 15. Guardsman. And then Savages. And Blood Brothers. And number 18. I mean, they took a completely different approach to the British ones, but their uniformity in DAW is great, and that's a real attraction to it. As I said, once again, tough to find in the original DAW. Now this came from that beautiful collection that Dorset Bob got last year, and I picked up the 3 missing John Normans at that point, which was very, very cool. So that's a Kajara. And then the 20th book, once again, a fantastic, fantastic cover. That looks like, is it Ken Kelly? I think it says. Yeah, Ken Kelly, another great, great artist. Look at that, how fantastic. So that was the 20th book for 1984. We've got Mercenaries. And then Dancer of GOR, which is number 22. Who's the artist on that one? Ken Kelly again. DAW Collector's Book 651. Yeah, it says 650 on the front. I wonder what was going on there. I wonder what they were including. And we got Renegades. Ken Kelly again. Or maybe they weren't Boris, but these Ken Kelly ones are just cracking. Great bits of artwork. And Vagabonds, number 24. So that was the last one in the UK. And then there was one more, which was this one, Magicians of Gore. So this is the very final book. And book 26, even DAW wouldn't publish it. It was that, well, what was wrong with it? I don't know, you know. Maybe he just took it a little bit too far. And then, similar to the UK, here's a Time Slave. I don't have Ghost Dance in DAW, and I don't have Imaginative Sex in DAW, which was very, very popular. Now, I've got one other thing to show you, just to finish off the collection. So it was from my friend Gary, and Gary Lavisi in the States ran a convention in 2012, and one of the guests, it was the... it was this one here, the New York City Vintage Paperback and Pulp Fiction Expo, Sunday, October the 14th, 2012. And John Norman was a guest at that particular convention. And Gary sent me John's acceptance to be a guest. He was going to, he ticked to say he was going to sign between 1 and 2. And then John Norman actually dotted it. Hope you have a good show, with best wishes, John Norman. There we are. So, in effect, it's a little bit of paperwork with John Norman's signature on. I don't have any signed John Norman paperbacks, so it was quite nice to get that little bit of memorabilia. So there you go. So I hope you've enjoyed looking through my collection of John Norman Gore books. They are, you know, not the highest quality literature you're ever likely to read. They are, in fact, a bit of a laugh, but the first 5 certainly are worth giving a go, just to see how you get on, because you may actually really like them. They are quite good fun. If you've enjoyed today's video, do please give it that thumbs up. Do please hit the subscribe button if you've not already, for regular vintage paperback content. And I shall look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.